Death and dying are topics that are all important for us, but in our society, I think they are just really shoved under the carpet and we not talk about it. But yet it's important to look at it and to talk about it because eventually we all will have to deal with death and dying. In this video, I want to present you the shamanic point of view on the topic of death and dying and how it might also help you to deal with this topic better and, just like having more ease around death and dying. Hi, for those of you who are new here, my name is Maddie. I'm a biologist and author and a shamanic practitioner. And on my channel, it's all about shamanism and how you can implement shamanic methods into your everyday life to make it more happy and fulfilled. I don't know about you, but for me, the topic of death and dying was something that I early on in my life had contact with. I grew up on a farm, and so my grandpa, he killed the animals on our farm for us to eat. That was already, for me, the very first contact with dying and seeing it as part of life, as a part of a cycle. And also later on, I really saw my grandparents dying. I was there in the process of dying, and I felt that I had like, a really weird separation to it. On one point, I found it very interesting, and also I experienced it as something very holy, as something very, very sacred. But on the other hand, I was scared, specifically when I thought about my own death. It's like I was like maybe 12 or 13 when I constantly, before I went to sleep, I imagined like, oh my God, how it would be if one day I won't be here anymore. Where would I be, right? It scared the hell out of me, not being able to do anything anymore. And for a long time, this fear really grabbed me hard and dominated my life until I started really learning more about death and dying as well. Specifically, when I was a biologist, I was interested in the topic, and I had a practical training in the pathology department of a hospital. So I was part of a dissection of a human being, and just having that experience of the physical on one hand. But back then I wasn't shamanically practicing. I had no background on shamanic work, but I still felt there is more than just our body. And this is exactly what you can experience when you look at death and dying from a shamanic point of view. Shamanism is just an umbrella word for all kind of techniques to get in contact with spirits, because from a shamanic point of view, everything has a spirit. And we have the so-called ordinary reality and the non-ordinary reality. And the ordinary reality is what you can really see, smell, and touch, and just what you like your everyday life, the 3D of your life. This is the ordinary reality. And then we have the non-ordinary reality where the spirits are present. And if we shift our consciousness, our way we perceive the world, then we can get in touch with the spirits in the non-ordinary reality. And so from a shamanic point of view, this is exactly what happens when we are dying. The spirit leaves the body and goes into the non-ordinary realms. And this is basically it. So from a shamanic point of view, death is not the end of life. It is just a transition. It is like a natural cycle. So it's just a different phase of a cycle you are in. And I don't know about you, but for me, that sounded very soothing. Just know that, okay, it's just my body that is kind of, dying. I can live with that. But there is more of me persisting and still remaining somewhere, and might even come back. So I don't know about the whole rebirth thing. I don't want to go into detail about this one, but just the whole process of dying is not the end of everything. It is just a transition into something else. So when I started learning about shamanism, part of my training as to become a shamanic practitioner or to be a shamanic practitioner was the topic of death and dying, because this is a big part of being a shaman in the traditional sense, like when you're on an indigenous tribe and culture and community, that the shamans help people who are in the process of dying, as well as people who died. It's the so-called psychopompous work, where the shamans look after the ones who died and just to make sure that they're at a good place, as well as helping those who are in the process of dying to make it easier for them to really just, leave their bodies and go on a place where they're in a good place. part of my training was also to experience my own death, to have a shamanic journey to the point of my own death. And that sounds pretty scary, which it was for me. But at the same time, I was very curious. And after the journey, I no longer was afraid of dying because it was such a beautiful experience. And it probably can be compared to a near-death experience that people, people say that they were at a very nice place. They didn't feel any pain anymore. Everything was at ease. They were everywhere and everything was around them. And that's how I experienced it. I was at a beautiful place. And it was like a huge library with thousands and thousands of books. I love books. So it seemed that this place was just perfect for me to be. And my cats were there. I saw my cats as well as my husband. And I felt at ease. I felt just happy. And it was a beautiful experience. And it's interesting that because many people have that kind of experience when they do the shamanic journey to this point of death, that there has to be made a precautional, how you say that, like some precautions had to be taken in order to make sure that everyone who did the shamanic journey in the class will also come back and not just stay there because it's so nice. And I found that pretty interesting experience as well. Also, part of my training was how to really contact the spirit of people who are dead, and also to help people who are in the process of dying. And that is a work that is just so beautiful because it is a very holy work. It is, I don't know, I can't really describe it, but it is something that really helped me to get over the fear, my own fear of dying one day, as well as the process of dying. And right now I'm actually also I'm part of a workshop with Sandra Ingerman. She is a shamanic practitioner from the US and has experience over 40 years. Like, I really, really like her. And so I have actually an online class right now with her about death and dying from a shamanic point of view as a rite of passage. And she says that every shamanic journey we are actually undertaking is already practicing dying, as if we are already practicing the process of dying, because when we go on a shamanic journey, we leave our body and our spirit goes on a journey. So I found that very interesting, as I always had that experience that it kind of feels like dying. This how I, if I have to imagine how it feels like, this would be how I think it would feel like. So I found that very, very accurate the way she explains it, and surprising because I had the same experience. And although the class was for beginners, you have to have a certain kind of experience with shamanic work before you can really do this like psychopomp work. And I wouldn't recommend it as something you do right away. You wouldn't do the shamanic journey to your point of dying as one of the first journeys, because it really takes some experience and a very good connection to your own spirit. So please don't do this at home on your own. But if you're interested in it, there are a lot of workshops out there specifically from the Foundation for Shamanic Studies. And you can do it in a safe way in a group. But just for you to tell you, there are methods, and they're actually they take on a very important and big part of the shamanic work to help people who are in the process of dying, as well as people who just died. Because usually what happens, from what I experienced, in my own work and heard from others, is that within the first couple days, maybe up to a couple weeks, the spirit of someone who just died, they still stick around. And that's why you have this, maybe, that situation where people say, I feel this person is still with me. Or, if like a pet died, you might have the feeling that your dog or your cat is still with you. And this is just because they are still with you. The body might be, the body might be dead, but the spirit is still there. And so, but after a while, the spirit starts really finding its own way to a place where they belong. But sometimes it can be that the spirit doesn't find its way. And this is the work of a shamanic practitioner, to help them and to just check on them if they are at a good place, if they're happy, or if there's something that, it's bothering them. And usually how it works is that when people had a very sudden and dramatic death, like maybe they were involved in an accident, that they didn't even realize they don't even realize they are dead. I had a situation once where a friend of mine asked me to check on another friend who committed suicide, and that is also sometimes, or I think in many cases, a situation where this person might have trouble to really, go on their own way. And that was also the situation. That was also the case in this situation where I had to help that person because this person was really confused and didn't really know what happened to her. So yeah, this is part of the shamanic work, really dealing with death and dying, and just to check on people who are dead if they're on a good place, and also working with people, their families and friends. So in these situations, the shamans are very important allies for people who are in the process of dying, because also the process itself takes a lot of energy. It is not easy to go over and to really leave your body. It takes that's from what I heard experienced in my work, that it takes a lot of energy. That's why sometimes people want to die, but they can't because they don't have that energy anymore. And yeah, so these are just some examples on how shamanic work can apply to the topic of death and dying. Also, something that everyone can do, although you're not having a shamanic background, is the so-called transfiguration, something I just learned in the workshop of Sandra Ingerman, where she says, you as a person, when you are maybe entering the room of someone who is about to die or in the process of dying, that instead of, just feeling bad yourself because of the whole situation, you try to get into your power, into your energy, and just really, like, as if you switch on the light bulb within you and you shine and you're really bright, and you're just becoming aware of that you have a spirit and this is, who you really are, entering the room. And that might also help that person who is in the process of dying, realizing that maybe there is more to it than just the body, and that this is the end. But they get a sense of, like, there is more. There is more than we would think, and there's not like the hell waiting for me, but maybe like a compassionate spirit on the other side who is helping me. And this is also something a shamanic practitioner would work with when they go to someone who is dying right now. Although they don't have any shamanic background, you can still work with people while you help them to, ease the process, and specifically the process of leaving your body, as if you would go on a shamanic journey. It is kind of like a assistant kind of meditation somehow, but it's definitely something that you have to have a training for, to make sure that the whole setting is safe. It can be that the spirits are still sticking around, and this is usually, when people say, oh, like, it's spooky in here, I feel there is like a ghost around. This is basically what really happens, that a spirit is still at the place where they used to be because they don't want to leave. And there are a couple of reasons for it. Either they don't know they're dead, or the other thing is they just don't want to leave their families. They are worrying that without them, maybe the kids don't know what to do, and they really have to stick around. And the other thing is also that the family and the friends maybe don't want to let this person go. So the question is not, is there a life after death, but also more, or rather, is there a life before death? And I think death can be a really good friend to us when we realize that he reminds us of something, that our life is not infinite, specifically, or in a way that, the person you are in, the body you have at the time you are in, is unique. And this life is just once in a lifetime. You will never have the same life ever again. So it will end at one point, and you can ask yourself, how do I want to fill up this life with? What kind of memories do I want to have? And what is it that I want to experience in this life? And this is why death gives really good advice, because it reminds us of the fact that our life, it will end at one point. I read a book once from Bronnie Ware. I think the book is called Top 5 Regrets or something. Let me see. Yeah, the book is called Top 5 Regrets, from people who are dying or about to die. She was working also as someone who helped people in a hospice, or just like helping them in the process of dying. And so she noted the top 5 regrets, and I'll just briefly mention them. The first one that people were regretting is that they wish they had the courage to live a life true to themselves, where they really make the decisions they want to make and not other people told them to. Like, having the job they really wanted, being in a relationship with a partner they really wanted, and not just getting pushed into decisions that were not their own. So I found that very, very interesting, because I experienced that my life many times. If I didn't know what to do, other people told me what to do, and I gladly said, okay, then I'm just doing it that way, realizing that was actually not the path I wanted for my life. The next one was that they regretted, or they said, I wished I wouldn't work so hard. And I think this is also something we can all relate to, that we get caught up in everyday stuff, that we work ourselves, like crazy, because we think we have to make more money, we have to have a career, forgetting about the things that are really important. And even if you have a work that you really, really love, it's easy to just, kind of get lost in the whole work process, as kind of even as an addiction, because if you stop your work, you might wonder what else to do in my life, or just using the time to meet people and do something new that you never have done before. So that was the second regret. The third one was, I wished I had the courage to express my feelings. Also very relatable, because I think many people just shove down the things they're really deep down feeling, that, whether it's pure joy, maybe even they're not able to express pure joy because they're afraid of what other people might think about them, or, people will be jealous if they have a life that are just full of joy. But at the same time, also if they're angry or if they're having a lot of grief, that's the other thing. And so really expressing your emotions, your feelings in a way that are authentic for you, just for yourself, but also when you are in contact with others, specifically with, friends and families and your partners, that people really know what's going on with you, and you just don't shove the shit down eventually explode at the end, or you have so many unresolved issues in your life that, they just really are weighing heavy on you. But just at the moment something happens that you're able to express yourself. And so number four is I'd wish I had I stayed more in touch with my friends, just really spending more time with family and friends and the people you really like. It doesn't have to be your family just because it's your family, but with people you experience that, when you spend time with them, you have more energy, and you just really have a very, very good time, and that fills you up with so much joy. And that's something I think we really have to make time for. And lastly is I wish I would have let myself be more happy and just, enjoy my life more. And basically, I think the summary of the other things, that you do the things that make you happy, and don't wait until you are, until you have all the money, until you have the perfect body, until you are retired, but start with it now. And I have a practice for you. So imagine it's your 90th birthday and you have a speech to all your friends, everyone is there, and you want to give a speech. What is it that you would want to say? I think it's a really cool practice, because you can really think about what is it that you want to do in your life, and what would you regret to not have done in your life, and make a list of all these things, like, playing piano or learning piano, or having animals, traveling Europe, whatever it is, write it down and really pick one of these things today and start with them today after this video. Don't prolong it. Don't say, next year I'll do it, next year I'll do it when I have more money. No, start it today. Do something little. If you want to start learning piano, then today find a teacher in your area and just start, or watch a YouTube video about playing piano or whatever. Just make a step into this direction, because the days and the weeks and the months are just flying like that. And if you just get caught in everyday stuff, these things will fall from the table, and eventually at the end of your life you'll like, oh my God, I can't go now because I don't have done all the things I wanted to. And I think this is also one of the reasons why some spirits are still sticking around after their death, because they feel like they still have so much stuff to do. They haven't really live their lives. And I think that's a very tragic thing, because we do have the time and we can make, things happen. It doesn't mean that you have to have a lot of money to make things happen, even in a different way. If you want to, like, for me, my big dream is to have a sanctuary for animals that need help, and just create a place for people to meet with animals, to learn from each other and have a place of healing. I don't have the money to like buy the huge sanctuary right now, but I already started with helping animals in different ways. Like I have 2 cats, and just provide them with everything they need to make them or to provide them a good life. And just specifically with Fiona, I kind of not really saved her, but she was in a place where she was not really happy. So I provided her a home where where all her needs are met. And it doesn't need to be the huge thing, but you can start working towards it every day. So yeah, that would be my invitation for you. Just really think about it. What is it that you want to experience in your life and you want to do before the end of your life? Since we don't know when this will be, start today and not tomorrow. And also, what is it that you could do if someone is, just died? Is there something you can do? Of course you can. And the first and the most important thing is that you can grieve. You can just really grieve about, or you just let out your emotion. And this is what we just talked about. That people, regret after their death or on their deathbed, they haven't showed their emotions and take their time to grieve. Like I mentioned that in another video, I had 3 miscarriages, and I really took the time to grieve. And I was fortunate because I was able to, at that moment, having the space, having the time, also having the support. But I think it is very important to really take the time for grieving. And it doesn't matter how much that it takes for you. There is no right or wrong. Some people it's just a week. For some people, it's maybe years. And just getting out these emotions, and it can come in bursts. Like, the miscarriages are like years ago, but still sometimes I feel such a big sadness about it, and I just let it out and express it. And just keeping these people that we are shared a part of our life with deep in our heart, and just really honoring them by thinking about them, and thinking about the good times we had with them, also the negative times, right? Just to really grieve about it. I think that's a very important part, that many people, and specifically in our society, is kind of not given enough room anymore. So just to sum this up, from a shamanic point of view, death is not the end of life. It is just, it's a passage to a different phase of a cycle, to a different stage of a cycle. And that the spirit goes on, and the body is just a body that is, not here anymore, but we can still get in touch with the people that we love, the spirits, their spirits. And it's not something that only shamanic practitioners can do. You can do it also. And just don't take everything for granted. I'm telling you here, try it out yourself. And you can do it by, maybe tonight, if you want, tonight, before you go to bed, you just sit down in silence and you think about a person who died maybe recently or years ago, that you want to have a sign from, that, that they're just still there. You can ask them, to send you a sign within the next 3-4 days. And a sign that you also really recognize it's from them. A friend of mine just recently did it with her mom, who died last year. And so she asked her mom, can you please send me a sign just to know that you are okay, or, that you hear me. And so within, I think it was the 2nd day after she sent out that intention, she was in a supermarket, and all of a sudden there was a picture of her mother on the floor, and her husband picked it up, and she's like, who's that person? And she's like, that's my mother. Where do you have that picture from? And her husband said, well, it was just on the floor. So somehow it must have fell out. Either it was out of her purse, or I don't know, like the bag she was carrying from her supermarket. And she said she has no idea how that picture came into her bag and her purse, right? And all of a sudden her mother was just right there, right in her face. And she said, like, what? That was such a clear sign from her. So try it out yourself. Just don't believe what I'm telling you here. Shamanism is not something you have have to study theoretically. It's something that you practice. The getting in touch with the spirits is something that you do, and not that you are just, thinking about it. Because once you do it and once you make your own experiences, you will realize it's real. It's not just something that people making up, right? So I definitely encourage you to try it out yourself. But specifically, the work with the death and the dying is something that I wouldn't recommend as a beginner in shamanic work, because it takes specific skills. But if you need help and are just saying, in the realm of being someone who is close to death and dying, or just recently lost someone, contacting someone who has a shamanic background is definitely a good idea for everyone involved, because they can make the process easier, and to make sure that after the death, this person is at a very good place. And I think that really helps everyone involved in the situation. I hope this video was helpful for you. If you want to know more about shamanism, then you can check out my playlist here. And if you are thinking about having a shamanic session with me, then you can contact me here. There's my email down below. Just write me an email and I'll get back to you. Thank you very much for watching, and see you next time. Bye-bye.